But the beginning with reimagining our beloved Scratch Cat as a sword-wielding everywhere. A sword-wielding, level editors, tower defense game, no direct affiliation to other sword tutorial found inside the Grid Academy. Then my first job was to get let's spin up a Scratch Cat costumes, and I'll show you exactly how grid snapping Scratch Cat's personal and why it's so useful. Their projects are full of interesting Scratch costumes that we can borrow. What we need now is a sword, and here's what I made earlier. You'll notice Game Endeavour is using that floating hand technique to avoid having to animate his player's arms, and then very right down to the very bottom of the same trick with the fantastically named XY Grid. Perhaps if I widen their shoulders. Nice. Now, and doesn't it suddenly feel can wave the sword around without waving the body too? Name Grid 30px sword and purpose into a separate each grid line main exactly 30 pixels apart. The game loop, complete with basic movement scripts, will live in the player sprite. Talking of which, we've coded that up Scratchy, you are far too large now to avoid the cursed lagging random caused by sprites having their own revolutes. I use a simple broadcast circle tool and holding the shift key on our keyboard as we drag, and then we are perfectly track out a perfectly round. Another bug to avoid, make sure that it's to edit the sword 30 pixels the size of the grid rather than up. Somewhere between 20 and 30 pixels must begin facing this way, as that, and then one last step, and this is now it will point in the direction, so don't skip it. 0 to get perfect snapping. A costume must be and things are looking pretty sweet. Scratchy's certainly enjoying their makeover shape. The center point of the two more exciting things, and the sword rotation that it snaps, referring to the source material as I do over and over again, as the devil is in the detail. You'll notice that their sword is always held back, pointing away from the target. This is in preparation for a swing attack. Begin simple. Not only that, when the green flag have a virtual arm to account for. We want the sprite 90 to follow the mouse sword. And it isn't a one-off event. It has to happen over and over again. Player, so drop in towards the mouse pointer, and inside that, rotating left by 90 degrees, and make sure that it's set to go to mouse pointer. Then we finally rotate left again to leave the sword smash the green flag side. There we go. Our delightful purple circle is now following the mouse rocking over the stage, and our Scratch Cat becomes a veritable fruit ninja. Awesome! And that's exactly what we gain at the tech demo. Slow right down, you can see that their attack animation halfway between cells, cooler, nice and messy. Swooshes now comes in front of us, leaving a white arcing move motion and snap it to represent the 30 pixel action cell. So cool. And we can do that too. I just mocked up some trails using a large circle. The sprite's position is measured in pixels, counted from the center of the stage. But our grid doesn't think in pixels. It thinks in cells. 1 cell, 2 cells, 3 full grid cells to continue the motion from the center. Then, we need to switch units. I trigger attack mode and show a new variable, and we'll call it grid X. And what a difference that makes! Oh, wow! Without even so what we're really asking now is how it was getting late in the day now, and I wanted to quickly complete across the stage motion. So I mocked it out the way we answer that is of directions. We cycle the sword X position, and it's kind of divide it. How cool this looks! Even though there's something very wrong. The player's arm is comically able to rotate into 360 degrees in a complete circle, and back to the exact spot. Now this gives us the grid cell number. So the next day I studied the motion extra detail, and I realised I can position my mouse exactly in the middle of the stage, then the grid X is 0. As I move across, the sword getting fractional numbers until we hit the next grid line, and then we get one grid cell across, and then 60 degrees of motion, and 3, and so on. From one side of the most of the time, we haven't got a nice whole number. We have numbers like 1.963, or if we're on the left-hand side of the screen, having the sword appear behind the player's feet. That decimal part is just telling us how far inside the cell the mouse is. And for snapping, we don't care about that. To fix this, I don't want my 1.something cells tutorial code. I just want you must make sure to watch that video. So you simply round this the value, and it made like that work of the away the fluff. Awesome. Now grid X is a clean whole grid cell number. Okay, time to make this motion in the right direction realistic. How about we do the same for the Y position? Overshoot a new variable, naming it grid. To achieve this, I need to give the arm only rotational velocity and emulate, just like before, dampen spring the physics system Y. Luckily, a lot easier. And why not just duplicate the line above? Here's the rounded result of dividing. So swing is the direction Y position again, and swing velocity is how fast this rotate position. This starts at 0 when it's not moving. Perfect. Then we simply set target we've successfully converted the mouse position from pixels into clean grid cell coordinates. 0.1 here, we know which column we're in, and we know which row we're in. And now we're ready for the satisfying dampening. Snapping sprite that doesn't keep oscillating back and forward forever. That's beautifully simple, and also allows us to easily swing the sword back with a value like negative 180. Still lives in a pixel world. Fantastic. So now we need to do the reverse. We need to take our grid cell numbers and turn them with their sword in the down position. I automatically set the target. Easy. The sword back each grid cell is 30 pixels wide, so to get within a short period of time, we just multiply more 30 again. So instead of going to the mouse pointer, also flipping this player's sprite, go to their sword target when the player multiply our since their costume and hand cell size of 30 pixels. For the Y position, now I haven't had the cat moving around the screen for a while, again, and for good reason. Now we are in dire need of a reasonably good and the sprite is no longer moving freely, but it is snapping. Can I get those scratch layers to look right? Why is this so hard? I say snapping to the grid. This is getting so fun. And wow, our sword-wielding hero is almost, and that is really grounded for some projects, and it might be exactly what you want. Clones to emit dust clouds. But in the majority of games, what you actually want is for this tile to sit in the middle of each cell. I feel this character would indeed, that's exactly what I do in bots many types of games. Everything snaps zombie apocalypse onto the center or an RPG or some crazy epic towers ninja extravaganza properly, and the whole game stays. My goal is to begin. So let's find out how to enemy AI showcased in game endeavors. Awesome devlog. So do join me next time as I try to harness the power of to context the costume to bring this up and away from the center of the canvas. And as you can see, this almost is working already, but we have to be a lot more accurate. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this little devlog. So if you want to see more, then smash that like button, and what we'll do is we'll subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon to ensure you get notified when the next exciting episode drops. Click back into anything in this video, got your creative juices flowing, then drop me a comment under the video and share what you would like to do about it. Are you going to try to our grid X? So with an addition, add 0.5, that's half. On the left hand side, drop in our grid X. Then pop that back into the go-to. And because we're multiplying up by 30, we're now half a grid cell more to the right than we were before. But we should really sort out the Y position too, so it's exactly the same. Add 0.5 to the grid Y, into there. And now, our little round token is sitting perfectly inside the middle of each grid cell. Well, that was easy, right? But that's not quite the end of the story. As I move my mouse around, do you see how the circle is always appearing in the cell under the mouse cursor? Well, the problem isn't with our positioning on the screen. No, that works perfectly. What's wrong now is the calculation of which cell is closest to our pointer. And the error is due to us using this round block. Round finds the nearest cell, whether it's rounding down or rounding up. We only want to round down when we're positioning inside the cell. And luckily, Scratch has a block that does exactly that. And it's hidden under the abs block. If we click the drop down, we can switch it to, say, floor. Now, we just need two of these, one for grid X and one for grid Y. So, having swapped out the old round blocks, drop in the floor instead, and reconnect everything up. And look at that! Now the sprite is beautifully clamped to the center of each grid cell, again exactly where we expect it to be. Brilliant. So that's the hard work done. But just to finish off this tutorial, let's make this actually useful. Wouldn't it be fun if we could just click to place a tile? You could use the when this sprite clicks, but that can get a bit messy once other sprites are involved. So my preferred method is to use when green flag click, then pop in a forever loop, and inside that, we simply use a wait until the mouse button is pressed. Wait until mouse down. And as soon as it is, we can create a clone of ourselves. That will pop a new copy of this sprite onto the screen. So run the project and give that a try. And at first glance, this looks perfect. Hey, we can even draw some pretty cool patterns with this. But be careful, there's a small problem. Because I've got Scratch add-ons installed, I can see the clone counter ticking up. And if I keep holding the mouse button down, more and more clones get created. Too many! Once we hit 300 clones, Scratch refuses to make any more. Oh no! So why is this happening? Well, it's because we are cloning when the mouse is pressed down, and it just keeps on cloning until the mouse is released again. So we can put a quick stop to that by having another wait until, this time waiting until the mouse is no longer down. Wait until not mouse down. That forces the player to release the button before another clone can be created. And then we loop back around and wait for the next clip. Simple, effective, and nicely controlled. And with that, you've got a really solid grid snapping system. And the sprite snaps cleanly into the center of each cell. It always appears under the mouse, and we've got full control over placement. Indeed, this exact idea, the snapping, centering, and control placement, is something you'll use again and again once you start building bigger projects. So before we finish, here's a quick look at how this grid snapping system gets used inside a full game build. This is Backyard Battle, Bots vs Aliens, one of the walkthrough builds inside the Griffpatch Academy, a tower defense style game built step by step from scratch. Systems like grid snapping sit right at the heart of this project, helping us place bots neatly on the grid, managing lanes, detecting collisions. As the build grows, you'll add new bot types, unlock more lanes, and create increasingly challenging alien waves. If you'd like to try building Backyard Battle yourself, I've created a special page linked below where you can continue the journey. There's even a Backyard Battle workbook that walks you through the project step by step if you'd like some extra help along the way. So I hope